Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It's nice to see you today. My name's Dustin Cormier. Welcome to How to Rock Astrology. Today we are going to be talking about what it's like when you have the natal sun in Taurus and your natal Mars is in the sign of Pisces. How do these two act individually, and how do their individual vibrations come together in the expression of your yang, outgoing sexual magnetism, and life ambition magnetism? How does it come about? I would say that this combination has some problems. This is one of the only combinations in this particular series that has the particular issue that this sign combination does. We're going to get into it right now. I would say that this is ultimately a good combination that can get what it desires. The sun is close enough to its exaltation point in Aries that it has a stable energy field. It stands up for what its desires are. It stands up what's best for it, because the sun here is still close to Aries, where the sun is exalted, which means that it has much energy. Exaltation and debilitation don't just, you could read in a Western text that says the sun is exalted in Aries. And you might think, oh, my sun's in Taurus, so it's not really exalted. Well, exaltation actually works by proximity, which means that this sun is close enough to Aries that it has the energy it has energy. It doesn't waste too much excessive energy by thinking about what other people want or how other people would like out of you. You think about what the king needs in order for the king to work best, because the sun here is close to Aries. Now, that's true. Although this Taurus in particular, well, here the sun is past the exaltation point, and now it's moving towards its debilitation in Libra. So there is a little bit of excess and a little bit of indulgence in the enjoyment of how you come off to other people. Taurus is guilty of that. So is Gemini, so is Cancer, so is Leo, so is Virgo, and so is Libra. It's not until we get to Scorpio where you're looking towards Aries again. I just lost my pen. Why? Sorry about that. So, this is the usual bag for Taurus. It's just what it is for Taurus, but Taurus is still a good sign. It knows the importance of fortifying its own stable energy field, so that, like any good tree, which can freely give of its fruits, it takes care of its own roots diligently. This is what the sun really needs to do, because the sun, in order to give out to others, to serve others, to project that which you want to be, you need to have a solid amount of resources in your own energy field, in your own desires. The king does best when he is thinking about his own kingdom in the context of his own kingdom. When the sun is close to Aries, the king, that's why the sun is exalted in Aries, and it's debilitated in Libra, right? Libra is all about other people, the image that you project to others, whereas Aries is about, the sun is exalted in Aries because the sun is ourselves, and the self expresses itself best by listening to your own inner your divine intelligence within yourself. That's why the sun does well when it's close to Aries. Now, this is a Taurus sun, which is it's good. It gets what it desires. It gets what it needs. It considers that an importance. For most things close to Aries, that generally works out well. With Taurus, there's a little bit of excess involved with it, because Taurus is ruled by Venus. And Venus and the sun do not get along well. Now, this is something that I explain in all my videos. You'll notice that the three planets, Venus, Mercury, and Saturn, are one group of friends, and they're all, in Vedic astrology, they're all friends. At this point, I should tell you that I'm a tropical Vedic astrologer, which means that I use Western tropical measurements I don't go back 24 degrees like other Vedic astrologers do. But I do consider the philosophy and way of interpretation of Vedic astrology is what I use. And I try to, part of my videos that I do here is to make you think as a Westerner, to make you think about these old Indian ways of interpreting astrology. Now, you don't got to take it wholesale. I'm going to try to explain my reasoning as to why I think this is the way this is and that is, okay? Now I'm going to describe this part of the indulgence that goes on with Taurus here. The king is not exactly, even though it's close to Aries, the king is kind of like in its own country, but it's in a position of really thinking about it's thinking a little bit too much about what its country needs to feel comfortable. It's looking at the economy of its country while there might be deeper underlying problems going on. This is like a politician who tries to solve things by, resorting to a conservative government and, stopping all the spending and being more conservative about the way of our budget, about how we budget things. And Taurus is good at budgeting, and they're the banker. They're good at their fiscal. They're good at all these sorts of things. But that's how the sun, the king essentially ought to be thinking, they shouldn't keep their eye on just the economy. They should think of what is the spiritual purpose of my kingdom? What is the whole reason that this kingdom exists? What is the culture of my kingdom? What am I meant to do? And, what you are meant to do, you shouldn't live your life based on what's the most comfortable job. Although, as a Taurus, you might feel like a comfortable job that feels good to you is what you're supposed to do and what you're supposed to be. Ideally, Taurus finds a combination of ease, because they like to be comfortable. They like to allow the ease of their job and the comfort and the magnetism of their own feeling of their own comfort. And their own feeling like they're in the proper slot in life. That's what gives them the energy, the luxurious feeling to move on, That's the self-comfort that helps them to move on, to look forward to a new day with more deliciousness, with more money to be gained, and with more happiness to pursue. Their happiness is their comfort applied to accomplishments. Taurus can still make great accomplishments. The sun is in a fixed sign, it's fixed earth, and you can attach yourself to a long-standing accomplishment. You can be good with resources, good with fiscal responsibilities, and can build your way to what it is that you want to realize in your life. Now, Tauruses often can be rather stodgy, can be rather dry, can be rather tough, and fixed and stubborn about getting these things that they want to do. They can be stubborn about how they work with their bosses and their other employees, and they will conscript themselves to a job for the company if the company's leaning on them. And this sort of comes to say that, they'll take those jobs upon themselves, which are comfortable for them, which they know will get them more comfort in the long run. They'll work hard now. It's going to get them more comfort and enjoyment down the road. If it's going to stabilize themselves, it's going to get them a higher position with a higher pay grade so that they can enjoy themselves even more. That being said, they are willing to put themselves in places where it's hard work, that they're not in their comfort zone. They'll go out of their comfort zone in order to come much more deliciously back into their comfort zone. In this regard, this is part of the reason why Taurus does get what it desires, and its desires are in its grasp. Now, the funny thing about this is that Mars and Pisces is actually a great place for Mars, for anyone's Mars, no matter what your sign, even as a Taurus sun. Mars and Pisces, purely by sign resonance, is good, because Mars here is in the sign of a friend. The sun is in the sign of its enemy, Venus, but Mars is in the sign of a friend, which is Jupiter. Jupiter primarily rules Pisces. If you want to know a little bit more about the positives of Mars and Pisces, check out, I've got a video dedicated strictly to Mars and Pisces. Now, this is what I'm trying to say here, is that the king and the general are kind of at odds in a certain way here. The king being the sun in Taurus, and the general, Mars, is the right-hand man of the sun. And Mars is supposed to do what it does for the sun, for the will, for the essential self that you're trying to project and materialize all the time. Mars is the lieutenant of the sun. And Mars is supposed to do what it does in order that the sun can manifest itself. Mars is our logical mind applied through its sign to get what the sun wants. Now, here's the funny thing. I was saying that we have two different groups in the planets, okay? There's Venus, Mercury, and Saturn. This is a Vedic wisdom. Now, why am I grouping those three planets together? Think about it. This is me trying to show you that I'm not just going to tell you these things. I'm going to try to explain so you can see for yourself what's going on here, okay? Now, notice this pattern. This is a pattern that Vedic astrology knows about that Western astrology doesn't, okay? Venus, Mercury, and Saturn. What do they have in common? Can you think of it? Well, which signs does Venus rule? It's Taurus and Libra. It's an earth sign and an air sign. Which signs does Mercury rule? Venus and Gemini. It's an earth sign and an air sign. Which signs does Saturn rule? Capricorn, which is an earth sign, and anciently Aquarius. It's more of a primary ruler of Aquarius than Uranus is, according to the ancient understanding of astrology. It holds the chakra. Aquarius holds the chakra energy of Saturn, whereas Uranus is a secondary arbiter of Aquarius energy. Saturn holds the main Aquarius energy. And so Saturn rules Capricorn and Aquarius. It's earth and air. So Venus, Mercury, and Saturn all rule the earth and air signs, right? Now, on the other hand, we have the other four planets, okay? And what do they rule? Of course, they rule the fire and water signs. What rules Aries and Scorpio? It's Mars. Mars rules Aries, fire, and Scorpio, water. Now, what does Jupiter rule? It rules Sagittarius, fire, and Pisces, which is water. Jupiter is in the same way. Jupiter anciently rules Pisces and is his main primary ruler. Pisces has much more to do with Jupiter than it does with Neptune. Neptune's more of a 12th house thing. The 12th house is more different from Pisces than any other sign is from its house equivalent. 12th house has to do with karma, past life energy. It has to do with letting go. It's malefic. And it will put you in states of isolation through your karma. Whereas Pisces doesn't necessarily put itself in isolation, or karma doesn't cause planets in Pisces to be isolated. You yourself, having Mars in Pisces, probably have a sense of your own individual way of working, and that's why you yourself might put yourself in places where you're working quietly by yourself, doing the work in the way that you prefer to do it. Your life is not going to force you to do that. You're just going to choose to do it because you have Mars in Pisces. If you had Mars in the 12th house, then your karma might force you to work alone, because that's the 12th house as opposed to Pisces. Pisces is just another one of the energies, and it's juicier and much more lively and outgoing than the Western tradition seems to think. So by having Mars in Pisces, this aids any sun sign. It's a good place to have Mars. It's not the best place. It's like it's like the fourth or fifth best, as I've already explained in my Mars and Pisces video. Now, with all this being said, this sun in Taurus, what I'm trying to say here is that the sun is considered in this other group, right? I guess I'll finish, right? Mars rules Aries and Scorpio, it's fire and air. Jupiter rules Sagittarius and Pisces, fire and air. Then Leo rules the sun, and the moon rules Cancer. So, that means that Sun, Mars, Jupiter, and the moon are all grouped together. And then Venus, Saturn, and Mercury are the earth and air signs, and they're grouped together. Now here, the sun, which prefers to think about itself, it prefers to be led by the outgoing impulse within myself. The sun generally does better in water or fire signs. Here the sun is in the sign of Taurus, which is ruled by Venus, which is an enemy to the sun. What happens with Taurus is that we lose energy by trying so hard to conscript ourselves to a lifestyle, which is, it stabilizes our energy field because we know that the comfort that we live by is going to entice us and inspire us to keep living. It's just that the way of that inspiration being by comfort and the enjoyment of life, it doesn't exactly push the sun to get the most out of life. Taurus essentially gets done enough of what it needs to get done to continue going along at its best and to continue going along well. It's inspired to do just enough to be considered to have done its job. In fact, it can even do a little bit more just to secure the position. But it's not inspired to throw all of itself single-pointedly at some great accomplishment as soon as possible right now. It's more of an end goal, security-driven consciousness. It's not necessarily a bad thing. But we do have to recognize that the sun is in the sign of its enemy, Venus here, which can be a bit indulgent. Now, that's not necessarily such a terrible thing because the sun is so close to Aries. But this is one Taurus that is not well served. Taurus sun, more than anything, is not well served to have Mars in Pisces. It is a little bit. So the sun in Taurus is a little bit, like I said, you are willing to go out of your comfort zone in order to get the money to prove to the boss that you can work hard, and then you can come back to your comfort zone at home with all your indulgences, and that gives you the inspiration to go back to work and go outside of your comfort zone for the boss, for the job, in order to work hard, in order to play harder. But you will put yourself out of your comfort zone. And sometimes that leaves you in a spot where you're doing something you don't want to do, and it can get you to allow you to be stepped on. And you'll grumble and you'll say, that's okay, that's all right, this is just the job I have to do. And the boss can come along and say, hey, you missed a spot there, Taurus. I know you're Mr. Big, comfortable man and you're working hard, but don't you forget that one little spot over there, or else you're fired. And bosses, just people can lay that kind of thing on you. You as a Taurus are willing to do a little bit of that. And you'll grumble and you'll say, yes, sir, and I'll do what I got to do. Now, Mars in Pisces does serve you a little bit by allowing you to say, kind of like, fuck you. Hey, relax, dude. I know what I'm doing here. You don't have to be a dick and rub my nose in the mud here. I'm doing my job. You're doing your job. Is there anything in particular you want to point out? I'm listening to it. And you are a good worker. Mars in Pisces knows how to work people and can be the soft guy while also being hard at the same time. Pisces has the more ability to be unapologetically stand up for itself than people give it credit, especially with Mars in Pisces in particular. It's Mars. And so you manifest what this Taurus sun wants through Mars in Pisces, which has an emotional attunement. You know what I've been saying about all the Mars and Pisces positions is that the self in one is the self in all. You know what you enjoy in order to do the job. You've got a pocket full of chocolate or your cigarettes or, like your indulgent lunches that are very healthy and fortifying. And you know how to enjoy a beer at the end of the day. And you can do all these things and you can vouch for them. And you know that they help you to do your job. And you know that it doesn't serve anybody for your boss to be a dick to you for no reason. So if the boss is going to be a dick to another friend on the job, you might actually go to your other friend and like, hey, you don't have to take that, like you can do your job and you can stand up for yourself, bud. And he's not going to fire you because he needs us. You can encourage people to stand up for themselves in this almost selfish way, but it's the Taurus's dignity selfish, which does serve you at a certain degree. You are willing to stand up for yourself, willing to stand up for your preferences, to how you'd prefer to work. Like how I describe Mars and Pisces is that they know, like I'm thinking of the ergonomic design of like, you know, those computer chairs where the back is like got a curve that perfectly fits your back. The arms are perfectly situated so that, the ergonomic design of the chair is made to make your living experience more comfortable. And by doing something like that, because you have more energy, you're not wasting energy by trying to figure out your weird spine, which means that you save energy by being comfortable in that way. So you can vouch on the job to say, hey, boss, I don't know if you realize this, but if we all had these super comfy chairs, we wouldn't all be fidgeting and we could put more time and effort on the job. And you could convince the boss of that, and they will, you could be right. And you could, that could be a thing. Now, that's useful and it's true. That ergonomic design thing is useful, and you can vouch for it so that you let everybody know that that's important. You stand up for it for yourself, and you stand up for it in your fellow workers. And that's the positive part of Mars and Pisces. Now, the only problem here is that the main problem with this position, what I wanted to say there is that while the sun in Taurus, the sun is in the sign of its indulgent enemy, Venus, and there's an unconscious indulgence principle where you're going to get it because you feel like you deserve it, and you do, and you're going to get that indulgence in order to get you through unconsciously whenever you can. It's not necessarily a bad thing because it's how you get along, and it's the enjoyment that's going to pull you farther, and that's part of what causes Taurus to be able to do great things, to attach their minds to long-standing directives. As long as they can nibble a little bit of chocolate, they can plod along on whatever track that they're on. So you do the thing, and Mars being in Pisces is actually a good place because Mars rules Aries and Scorpio, which is fire and water. Mars is well served to be in a water sign in the sign of its friend Jupiter because you're unapologetic about your desires and what you like. What happens here is that I would contend that this combination is not as good as the Western sextile vibe would have you believe. People say that the sun in Taurus is sextile Mars in Pisces. In the Western sphere, that's considered a good thing. Now, I'm trying to get you thinking in terms of the old Vedic way. And in the Vedic way, Mars and the sun are good friends. Mars and Jupiter are good friends, which means Mars does well by being in Pisces. Now, this is another layer of it that you have to think of, okay? The sun and Mars here are in two signs, and those signs have rulers. And those rulers have to get along in order for the king, the sun, and the general, Mars, to see eye to eye, and for them to encourage and support each other. Mars in Pisces is helping you a little bit because Mars does well in Pisces, and that's helping Mars. But the ruler of Pisces, which is channeling your Mars, is the principle of Jupiter. Now, the ruler of Taurus, which is ruling your sun, Taurus is ruled by Venus. Venus and Jupiter don't get along. What happens here is that Venus is delighted by Venus is delighted by Jupiter, which means your Taurus sun gets the indulgence. It gets to enjoy the indulgence which Mars in Pisces provides. Jupiter indulges Venus. But whenever Venus and Jupiter are coming together in any way, including this, they're not technically coming together, but Mars being in Mars being in a sign ruled by Jupiter, and the sun being in a sign ruled by Venus, your will is ruled by Venus, and it has to apply its will, this indulgence that you seek. It's getting that through Jupiter. And Jupiter is helping that Venus to get what it wants. But your Mars in Pisces is kind of being wasted. That's what I'm going to say about this combination. The Lords clash, which ultimately puts Mars to less positive effect. Mars in Pisces is hard about its preference, about what it, you know what you like. And you are hard about, you're stubborn about, and unapologetic about what you need to be happy. And you'll say this to your lover in relationships. You'll say it to your boss on the job. And you'll make everybody believe that you're doing the right thing, because the Mars in Pisces knows that the self in one is the self in all. And everyone else says, oh, you're just asking for what you need to work best on the job. And that's how you're going to work best on the job, right? So all it comes down to is when you unapologetically ask for what you need on the job, as long as it actually makes you work better at that job, then it's justified, right? So as long as whatever indulgences you demand on the job or in your relationship actually contribute to making your life better and easier and everyone else's lives easier, then when you demand something in order to make your life better, people will do it as long as you show in the long run that it's making everyone's lives better. Now, what happens when you suggest to the boss that everybody in this place ought to have these cool, slick, ergonomical chairs? And the boss says, well, I mean, I see what you mean there, but we could take this money and make this merger with this other company. And it's going to take this amount of money. And we need this money to go over to this other company, make the merger and network with them so that they can they can be a part of our company. We need the money to do that, right? So your boss says to you, I know you're saying that we want to spend money on the ergonomic chairs so everyone's more comfortable, but the boss is telling you, I think our money would be better served to go and network with this other company. We'll make more money over there, and that will give us money to get the chairs that we need here. Now, if you as the Taurus say, no, boss, wrong idea. We need the chairs now so that people can be comfortable making the money, and then we'll get more money, and then we can throw money at that other opportunity. And the boss, if you're an advisor for your boss, and your boss says, I understand, but this opportunity with these other guys, it might not come again. And you, as the Taurus, which is unapologetic with this Mars and Pisces, you know that you need those chairs in order to work most comfortably. So you say, no, boss, no, get the chairs. Trust me. Everything else will come once you get the chairs. So then your boss, instead of doing the merger with that other company, they take that extra money, they buy the whole company $5,000 worth of these new ergonomical chairs. And everyone says, great, good job, Taurus. And then for the next month or two, everyone is comfortable, but they're putting in the same amount of work that they did before. The company's not making any more money, and now the company goes bankrupt because they just wasted a bunch of money on this indulgence, which you fought for, which wasn't actually thinking about what's best for the company. This is the problem that happens with this Mars and Pisces. Ultimately, Mars and Pisces will unconsciously indulge the excessive sensuality of Taurus Sun. Mars and Pisces does finely build. Mars and Pisces is well attuned, even though it's even still a little bit kind of indulgent in its own way. With all the other suns, it's like if you're an Aries sun, you can indulge yourself in this way. The example I used with Aries sun with Mars and Pisces is that you might, you're a boxer and you put on these gloves and you go out and train with these gloves on. Everyone says, oh, you're such a pussy. What are you doing putting these gloves on? The Mars in Pisces knows that the gloves makes it easier so that the sun in Aries can train even harder. And that indulgence and those gloves, you paid for them, but it's paying off in your performance. Here, so that Mars and Pisces for that boxer served them well with this little indulgence, this little, this luxury will actually increase your performance. So that's Mars and Pisces working well. But with Sun and Taurus, you unconsciously you're unconsciously excessive about what Mars in Pisces gets. Mars in Pisces acts on principle, and it doesn't ask for a reward. It just goes by the principle of this is what things ought to be. You know, your Mars in Pisces might actually help people on the job. You know, you'll go out and do a favor for someone on the job just because you know that that's how you want to be on the job. Mars in Pisces. Mars is nice about how it applies itself, and people are attracted to that in you. It's true. Just, you know, you might be the type of person who does a favor for someone and then you make them feel really guilty and shitty when they don't immediately give you a reward back. Or it's like, you know, like, all right, I'll do this thing for you, but you better get it back. And then the other person's like, okay, I'll do my best. I just kind of need help from you right now. I hope you don't lord it over me too hard. And then the Taurus in you says, okay, good. I'm going to remember. I'll do this little thing for you, but I'm going to remember that you need to get it back to me. And it's because the Mars in Pisces is unapologetic about the will of Taurus, of that indulgent Venus. You're going to do this thing for me. You said that you would, and now you have to because you said that you would, and I'm telling you that you would and that you're gonna. And it's all of this, like, Jupiter is optimistic about holding the promise that you gave to Taurus. And this Jupiter is being excessively, unapologetically indulgent for that sun in a way that's actually grinding more gears than it's supposed to be helping. So you may try to shield, consider that the Mars is in the sun's 11th house here. This is going to be a longer video, just particularly for this sign combination. People may question whether this Taurus in particular is really a team player. The self-directedness of being close to Aries makes you hold on to your own energy field, and you kind of project this thing of like, we've all got to hold on to our own energy field, right? We've all got to demand for what would make us work best, right? But here, when you stabilize your own energy field by demanding what you need in order to work best, people question where that's coming from. You know, are you doing that because you have a proper sense of how everyone ought to work, or are you being a bit indulgent? People don't know. They question your ethics. Now, especially if your Jupiter is well placed, then, you should have a well-placed Jupiter and a well-placed Venus. If your Venus in Taurus, you just got the sun in Taurus. If your Venus is over there in Pisces, where it's exalted, you might actually get so much internal enjoyment from all the things in your life that you don't need to demand too much of people for your comforts. And you will, whenever you say, hey boss, we should buy these ergonomic chairs for everybody, everyone will be like, I know, he's got a good heart. He's just, he doesn't have too much hungry, excessive desire. So he is just saying what might make everybody feel good. Because you get your sensual enjoyment in little ways. When Venus is in Pisces, it's exalted, and you can find an orgiastic bliss from from reading a love note from your loved one. You can bring it to work with you. You can say, oh, this is so lovely. Even though you got this crappy chair, you put that picture of your wife on your computer, and you look at it, and every time you look at it, you say, this is why I'm here. I'm just going to keep working hard. And so then your demands, if your Venus is well placed, you're not going to have that excess of desire. But if your Venus is out in let's say Aries is not its best, although Venus is still okay in Aries. But it's like if Venus is in like Cancer here. Venus is starved by the moon when it's in Cancer. It's emotional, and you have these emotional demands when Venus is in Cancer. So that when you demand that everybody pay attention to me because I think we should have sushi at the lunch party, people are looking at you and they're saying, do you really think that sushi will help everybody, or are you just like trying to make everybody pay attention to you? You know, this is the kind of vibes that can come through with Mars and Pisces being unapologetic about what its desires are, coming through the Taurus self-stabilizing principle. Everyone begins to question, where is that coming from? And if your Venus is not well placed, then people bring it into question. And if Jupiter is not well placed, especially, because Jupiter is essentially the holding your Mars energy here. And if your Jupiter is not ethically placed or well placed, then you might not be that you might not have a deeper, higher mind in your madness. You know, if your Jupiter is in Capricorn, where Jupiter's, debilitated, and you're making all these demands, and you're ultimately just doing it because that's like, you know, you're doing it because that's what's best for the company, and that's the best amount that the money in our coffers and our company can give us. And, you know, you're not doing it to really have people enjoy it. It's like you're throwing donuts at everybody and saying, hey, you pigs, here's some donuts so you guys can work better. Are you going to work better if I give you these damn donuts? You know, that's like Mars and Pisces is indulging your workers, but the Jupiter is not finding enjoyment in it. It's doing it strictly for this capitalistic reasons. And then again, people are going to question your ethics whenever you do anything. Now what happens here is that Mars is in the 11th sign from the Sun. Pisces is the 11th sign from Taurus. What happens is that your Mars in Pisces is going to start trying to look like it's thinking about everyone else in a way that's just suspicious. That's what happens. You may try to shield or protect or fortify or excuse your reputation. The reputation of what your Sun in Taurus does. Note that the 11th house has to do with reputation. It has to do with how people perceive you, your gains, how people ultimately, the glory that you project through your Sun. Mind you, this is only from the Sun. In Indian astrology, we say that you can build a chart from any point in the chart. They often use the Chandra Lagna, which means the Chandra is the moon. They do a moon chart. But they also do the Surya Lagna chart, which means counting all the positions of the planets from the Sun. Here, the Sun is in Taurus, and Mars is in the 11th sign from Taurus, which means that Mars is putting a lot of its effort into Pisces, which is the 11th house, which shows that you're trying to manipulate how people perceive you. You're trying to manipulate how people take you. And the 11th house is not a good place either. This is more, the 11th house is considered an evil house. So this goes to show that Pisces is an indulgent place for all things Taurus related. And, you know, ultimately this is something that you'll have to watch out for to make sure that you're not, you know, coming off as parasitic in anything that you do. Now, ultimately, with all that being said, the Sun is still close to Aries, which is good for your self-survival. Mars is in a good place too. Still only two signs away from its exaltation. And it's in the sign of Mars is in the sign of a friend here. So these planets, there's definitely worse places for both these planets. It can be a bit indulgent, and it's something you got to watch for. But ultimately, it is still, you know, if you can keep plodding along and be unapologetic about how you enjoy yourself and how you indulge yourself, it will still come through. Just be aware of the parasitic energy that I just talked about. Try some discipline. Enjoy a bit of yoga. This, for you in particular, you would be very well served to do some yoga, because yoga is an enjoyable, pleasurable discipline. Yoga combines both. Yoga can be very nice and blissful and enjoyable. You just got this music and you're going all by your own blissful, wistful accord. But it's also a way to invite discipline in that excessive indulgent play. These are the kind of things that I also recommend you get into music or writing, Something where you're enjoying a recreational indulgence, which you have to apply discipline to in order to get the most out of it. Something very good for you in particular to do. And you might find that this attitude you kind of have to apply in relationships and in everything that you do. Because you might find that you just want to enjoy laying back after the work is done. And enjoy the indulgences of your lover, of your senses, and of all these things. If your Jupiter is well placed, then you won't be lacking you'll funnel it all to the proper place. And if your Venus is well placed, then you will satisfy yourself. So you're not going to be too indulgent. Those are two little gateways for you. But ultimately, this is, I think Westerners will get I've painted a very different picture from what I imagine Westerners would say about the Sun in Taurus and Mars in Pisces. The Mars in Taurus, the Sun in Taurus, Mars in Pisces person is generally considered to have relationship values. Taurus, it's a little bit indulgent or whatever, but it does take its relationship seriously. And Mars in Pisces is supposed to be sensitive and kind of mute and listens to people. It's not really the case. There's some truth to the Mars in Pisces being receptive, but it's an outgoing receptivity. You are receptive to others in order that you can know what makes them tick, in order that you can maneuver them to apply your agenda to. It's okay. It's not a bad thing. We all do this to each other in a lot of ways. It's just how you got to get around, man, with other humans. We've got to move each other around and also be willing to be moved around. And the Mars in Pisces is willing to be moved around for other people's regard. As long as, if you're telling me to move, I'll move for you. But then when I tell you to move, you better move. You better do what I say, and it better be mutual. And you are somebody who will be very serious about making sure that sort of thing is mutual. If I'm going to jump through a hoop for you, you got to jump through a hoop for me. Which is cool. It makes sense. It allows you to stand up for yourself. So this doesn't my whole point here is that this is just the Sun and Mars. Taurus does consider its relationships to be important because you will conscript yourself to relationships that helped you to move forward by the slack that the other person picks up for you. But that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be a good lover. You put value in relationships for the Sun's sake, in order to help you get forward in life. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you instinctively put a deep value on relationships and on the person you're in relationship with. It doesn't necessarily mean that you deeply care about the person that you're with. In order to know about that has to do with the placement of your moon and the placement of your Venus in your chart, as well as the 7th Lord and the 4th Lord. These will all have to will show whether you really put a value in the people that you bring into your life as a partner, as a soulmate, as someone who you do deeply actually, if you're a Taurus with a good Venus, if you're this person, you've got a good moon and a good Venus, all the work you do in the world will be its own thing, but it will be a mutual thing with the love that you experience in your domestic reality with this other person. And Tauruses can be like that, but Taurus Sun, purely at its essence, is just using other people to make its life more enjoyable. That's just the Sun. Whether you also consider relationships to be a deeply valued thing has to do with whether you got a good moon and Venus. That's my whole point here. So Taurus Sun with Mars and Pisces knows how to maneuver people and knows what itself is, knows what you like, and you can inspire people to stand up for their own desires and their own preferences while still holding to your own, and you'd be better served not to be too indulgent about all of that. Ultimately, this is a sign that gets what it wants and can be a good lover, actually. If you might have these indulgences that we've talked about, and it's unconscious, but people are going to love it. People are going to love the charm of the Mars and Pisces. And when it comes down to it, one of your deeper values might just be that you work as hard as you play. You play as hard as you work, rather. You might actually play a little harder than you work. The good news is that you work hard at playing. And any lover that's with you is going to know that when you get home and it's the weekend, you've worked hard all week, Saturday and Sunday's here, and Taurus is coming out to play hard. Mars and Pisces knows how to indulge itself hard. This is a real hedonistic, centric enjoyment principle, because the Sun and Mars like to enjoy themselves in what they do, and what they do is bound to involve this kind of enjoyment. So you might find yourself really having the ambition to get luxuries in life, to do well, to get high status, and to get things through which you can enjoy the luxury of life with your partner. And if you consider it important, then you'll make sure that they enjoy their lives too. And that's a great value to have as a lover. So ultimately it's a good combination. There's things to look out for with this combination, that's all. Now, this has been the longest video for this particular sign. Like, this has just been ridiculous, but I knew I needed it for this sign. So we're going to finish here with Erotic Astrology by Phyllis Vega. I'm just going to make it short thrift, just because I've already talked a lot. This is Sun in Taurus with Mars in Pisces. The erotic nature, so we can kind of see how this will tangibly manifest itself for you. Essentially, one part of you is dreamy and romantic, while the other is sensible and down to earth, kind of unapologetic and dry. This is when Taurus comes out, and it's sort of like, I have to work hard first and be strict about things in order that I can play afterwards. Your sensual nature appreciates the physical side of love, while your idealism engages the spiritual side. You really get excited about the best friend, Mars in Pisces energy, brought out by the buoyant friendship energy of Jupiter, so that you would probably just enjoy hacking at anything with your partner. Going on an adventure, going to a motel, talking to the hotel clerk, having a conversation that is ridiculous, and then going back upstairs with your lover and saying, can you believe the way that they talked about this and that? And you'll get excited about making fun of things with other people. These kind of activities you'll enjoy doing with your lover, and it'll bring out a best friend soulmate vibe. You know how to elevate lovemaking to an art form. You can at times be possessive, demanding, or clingy, but more often you're generous, considerate, and indulgent of your partner's wishes. And that's true, especially if you consider, again, you'll indulge your partner in order that your partner, now you owe me one, and now you can indulge me. That's how Taurus works. It's match for match, especially with Mars and Pisces here, knows that the indulgence of others is going to win your own indulgence. That's how Pisces works. Especially Mars working its way. You manifest your desires of Taurus through this give and take of Mars and Pisces. Again, it's going to be your moon and your Venus is going to show whether you're capable of indulging your partner's wishes without anything in return, which is something that is good for any partner to really employ. Remember, my friend, that your Lord, Venus, which rules your sun, is exalted in Pisces, where it kind of has to give it up a little bit. You adore long... I guess I should say to finish that, is that's how Venus works at its best. It's when it's giving of itself without thought of reward. That's just how Venus works best, ultimately. If you can make that happen with any lover, it'll make your thing work better. Now, I'm reeling around in my own head, as long as you don't, you know this though, as long as you don't step on your own dignity, your own self, your own energy field, then surrendering yourself to a lover in that way is really good. But you got to stand up for yourself. You already know that because of your Mars in Pisces. You adore long, lazy hours of loving during which you and your partner take the time to explore each other's bodies from head to toe. Is a juicy, hedonistic energy, which can still hold down the practical matters of life. And people will love you for your charm, just as long as you're just making sure that you're not ever coming off too unabashedly about this whole indulgence thing for the group that you're working with. So you guys see what I mean. Even with your own lover, this indulgence thing is delicious and beautiful. Just, you don't ever want your lover to feel like you're using them for the enjoyment that you both enjoy through each other. There's the form, the symbol of the body of the person and all this delicious enjoyment. But, enjoying the form is not the same thing as enjoying the spirit, the energy that rests within the form. And your lovers can feel that. And it's something that you might have to go through some lovers before you finally find someone who is a soulmate in the deeper realm, and there's somebody who you can indulge on the surface, enjoy the hedonism of their body, of their minds, of the playfulness that you two apply to each other. You're ultimately going to want to find someone who has both. Now, this is the longest video ever. Whatever. It's just how it rolls. I'm Dustin Cormier for How to Rock Astrology. I hope you guys have made it to the end of this video and enjoyed it. Let me know in the comments if I'm speaking a language that resonates with you. Let me know if this resonated with you. I'm very curious. I've been doing this sort of thing where I throw out the Vedic wisdom in these Western, combinations and stuff. Feel free to leave me a comment if you dug it. Feel free to drop a like. And if you really dug my style, feel free to subscribe, because I always got more stuff coming out in the world of How to Rock Astrology. Thanks for watching, folks. I hope this helped, and I'll see you guys on the next episode that you decide to join me on. Hope you enjoy.